first piece I want to talk about comes from the one and only Mascagni. It's one of my all-time favorite pieces, and it's the Intermezzo from Cavaliera Rustina. One of the reasons I love this piece is because it has such a unique history. I kid you not, he won a contest to get this put on. How it went down was back in 1888, a Milan publisher made a contest where he basically said any composer that hadn't had an opera performed on stage could submit a one-act opera, it would be judged, and the 3 best winners would be on stage. Out of more than 70 that were submitted, this is one of the 3 winners, but weirdly enough, when it first premiered, nobody liked it. Following this, he made a few different changes to the music and the lyrics and the way that it was performed, and since then, it's become one of the most successful operas of all time. Now, the music in question, for me, is one of the most blissful melodies ever composed. It drifts along beautifully in this way that makes you get completely caught up in it, and it has pretty much every element that makes slower classical music so enjoyable. You can basically see this as absolutely perfect for any dramatic moment, and it's no surprise that this has found its way into so many of the greatest films of all time, like Raging Bull and The Godfather and a number of others. While Mascagni himself may not be as well known as many other composers, this piece remains a staple for orchestras across the world and is one of the most widely performed pieces of all time. Next up, we're going to look at the Pavlovskian dances from Borodin. This one also comes from an opera, that opera being Prince Igor, but the piece itself remains played by orchestras all across the world all the time. While there are a number of different great pieces from this opera, it's the dances that really hit you the most and the one that most people know. And honestly, if you see a performance where they have vocalists, the second they start singing, you're gonna know this piece. It's the way that the vocals descend and work against the pounding rhythms that makes this such an amazing piece. As the strings just explode with excitement, and you can hear a number of parts from traditional Russian composition all over this. The sense of energy and movement on this have rarely been rivaled within classical music. And it's just one of those pieces that when you see it live, you have to get into it. Within popular culture, you can find everyone from Massive Attack to Warren G sampling this work. And it's also in a number of video games, television shows, movies, you name it. Go check this one out because as soon as you hear it, you're gonna know it, and now you'll know what it is. The final piece I want to look at today comes from Massenet, and it's his Meditation from Thais. Sticking within that realm of classical works that came out of operas, this one came to be a few years later, and it's written as one of the most soulful violin solos of all time. This piece actually appears a number of times throughout the original opera, and while the original composition is only about 5 minutes long, later interpretations have it pushing well past 6 minutes in some cases. In many ways, the title speaks for itself, as whether it's being seen within the opera or an outside performance, it really forces you to reflect upon so many things in your life. This piece also has a wandering tone to it, and that was very much the intent of the original opera. And rarely do you find the meaning coming through so clearly within the music without any other context. Over the years, this piece has become so popular that it's been transcribed for a number of other instruments, with cello and piano versions becoming extremely common over the last 20 years. While rarely performed just on its own, oftentimes they combine this with other parts of the opera for larger performances. But many of the finest violinists in the world continue to use this piece as the encore for their solo performances. You just can't ignore classical music's place as the foundation for all music that's come about since. So make sure you take some time this week and get your classical on.